My name is Karthik Krishnan. I am the founder and CEO of Concentric AI, a data security company. At Concentric, we help enterprises discover, monitor, and protect their data across their enterprise environment without rules, regular expressions, policies across structured, unstructured, and cloud data repositories. I'm here to present to you Concentric Semantic Intelligence that can help you with your cloud data security and cloud DLP needs. Today, I would like to showcase the capabilities of the Concentric Semantic Intelligence solution. Concentric Semantic Intelligence does three things for customers. It fully automates the discovery process, helping you understand all of your mission-critical data, from financial information to intellectual property to business confidential information to PII, PCI, PHI within your data with context. It also helps you identify where there may be risk against that data, from inappropriate permissioning, wrong entitlements, risky sharing, unauthorized access, and so on. And the last part of what the solution does is it helps you remediate those issues and prevent data loss. It does all of this in an automated fashion without customers having to do any upfront rules, regular expressions, policies, or requiring a priori understanding of what risk means to them or what they need to look for from a sensitive information identification standpoint. It's also completely agentless. It can stand up within 10 minutes and demonstrate value with your data sets within a few days. So I'd like to go ahead and show you what the product is capable of doing within your own environment. The first part of what I talked about was the data discovery process. Concentric Semantic Intelligence does something pretty unique in that it uses deep learning as a form of NLP to help you contextually understand your data. It goes beyond regexes and patterns to developing a semantic understanding of the data to give you a thematic view into your information, where if you were to point us at a bunch of your repositories, we'll come back and give you a category-oriented representation of your data, everything from legal, HR, finance, insurance, and so on, to if you were to click within finance, also be able to give you subcategories of data. For example, term sheets or credit card letters or income statements and so on. This is all done across, this data discovery happens across your entire environment, across unstructured repositories, structured repositories, also email, messaging, communications applications. And you can also get views into if there is PII, PCI information within this data. We're also providing that juxtaposed with context. For example, PII data in a resume may have different context relative to, say, PII data sitting within a wire transfer document. Once we discover this data, a lot of our customers have used this to drive, for example, data classification programs where you can go ahead and thematically identify categories of data. For example, credit card authorization statements. And you can say, go ahead and classify all of this data as being confidential. And we then integrate with native classification schema, everything from Microsoft Information Protection to Google to Box to other third-party classification schemas to natively apply the metadata, where we're able to apply the confidential metadata tag against this particular data itself. So there are customers, we have credit unions and hedge funds today who have successfully deployed data classification to tag mission-critical sensitive data and label it accordingly. Without having to do a lot of rule writing up front, without having to rely on your end users to have to go in and self-identify the data and so on. So this is the first substrate of what the system does for you, which is helping automate the discovery with context without customers having to do any work upfront. The deep learning and the NLP allows you to understand this data and categorize it with extremely high accuracy because you're going beyond regexes and patterns, which often lack the context necessary to understand true meaning, to actually developing a semantic understanding of the data and giving you a pretty highly accurate view into where all of your mission critical data might be. Once we discover the data, we then do something that's also fairly unique, which is we compare semantically similar data for their properties like entitlements, sharing properties, who's accessing it, location, and so on, to also give you a risk-oriented view into that information, developed autonomously, where, for example, we can tell you sensitive data that may have been shared outside the company in a manner that looks inappropriate. That's what the risky sharing outside the company widget represents. Or, for example, at a tech company where we're helping them identify intellectual property, either design documents, source code, etc., that employees have shared with their own personal email. It's an insider risk use case. It's something that is against the corporate use policy for that particular customer. But instead of just blanket identifying all use cases where personal sharing is happening with email, we're surgically able to apply it to the specific data sets that they actually care about, which in this case happens to be their intellectual property. Or, for example, if you have classification programs in place, you're using end users to self-identify data, we can compare semantically and thematically similar data for what labels have been applied to also be able to give you a view into data that may have been inappropriately classified. For example, the data that should probably have been classified confidential, but somebody has erroneously marked it as public, in which case now sensitive data may end up in the wrong hands. So we can then not only detect that, but we can give you a view into exactly what the data is that may have this particular property. In this case, I double-clicked on the risky sharing risk widget to give you a view into some of those documents. And one of those happens to be a share agreement. And upon investigation, let's say that you essentially don't like what you see in terms of who might have access. You can actually go in and surgically apply policy, where you can go ahead and define a permission, where you can say, make sure that documents of this particular type, for example, finance documents or legal documents that potentially may have a certain property, like may have certain PII in it, you want to make sure that regardless of where it may be within your environment, you want to make sure that either all external users don't have access to it, or only certain classes of users and groups have actually access to it. And it could be a permit policy, it could be a deny policy. And if you were to go ahead and create this particular policy, we will go ahead and continuously monitor your environment to make sure that data of this particular type can only be shared with the right sets of people. So allows you to not just find risk, but also go ahead and investigate to be able to remediate issues that you might see. Another very unique thing about what we do is, let's say you want to find credit card letters and you're worried about information with PII in them. One of the nice things that the system gives you is a unified view into where all of this data may be across your environment, across your on-premises data repositories. In this case, Fremont happens to be a local file system, could be on your cloud SharePoint, could also be through email. Could be, for example, Exchange. And we give you Concentric Semantic Intelligence remains the only solution that actually allows you to get views around access and risk, not just across structured and unstructured, but also environments like email and messaging applications. And in this case, if you look, the clip sign tells you that this is a data that may have been a credit card letter that was actually exchanged over email. And so if you were to click on that, you can get a view into who the users are that this information was shared with, and all the corresponding thematically similar data. And you now get a view into how this information might actually have proliferated across your environment, not just at the repository level, but also across in-motion repositories, like in-motion sources like email as an example. And on any one of these risk widgets, let's say we're helping you identify intellectual property that employees have shared with their own personal email. If you were to click on this, you can get a view into the specific subcategories within which we saw the information, but also you can get information around the specific document or data type itself. For example, here's an option grant document that an employee shared with their own personal email. And this gives you a data 360 view, tells you everything about the document itself in this case, whether it was a legal document, stock agreement, whether it contained PII. And also it tells you all the internal, external users that this information is accessible by, as well as who it's been shared with, who the users are that potentially shared this with their own personal email as an example. And if there is any PII or PCI or address type information that is within that document, that's also presented to you with this sort of a 360-degree view. The other thing that the system also allows you to do is it basically allows you to get activity level analytics. So it doesn't just tell you context around the data, but it also can tell you, for example, if you click on a user, you can get what he or she might have done over a prior period that you can flexibly define. For example, you can tell, in this case, this particular user, you can tell what he or she viewed, what they uploaded, what they downloaded, visited, etc., modified, etc. But not just at a raw list, but also at a thematic level. How many of this was sales data, HR data, legal data, and so on. This is something that a lot of our enterprises have found very useful for employee offboarding use cases. Let's say an employee is leaving the company. Often there end up being investigations around what that said employee might have done in the prior 30, 60 days. But not just a composite list of activity, but around data sets that you may care about. Did they take some intellectual property with them? Did they take some sensitive financial data with them? And by having a pretty rich understanding of the data itself, the system is able to give you a window into exactly what that particular employee might have done at a category, subcategory level. So you can actually drill down upon the specific sets of data that you really, really care about and get a view into what they might have done to support your data incident investigation use cases. The overarching theme here is the system works completely in an autonomous fashion. So the system requires us 10 minutes to deploy and stand up, either for a proof of value or for an actual production deployment. It connects back into your repositories in an agentless manner through APIs. Within a few days, we can actually scan and give you a pretty representative view into your data, so you can actually see the AI, the deep learning work within your environment to give you a view that looks exactly like this. In fact, this view was created without any upfront work at all. So the system is able to discover your data. It's able to give you a risk-oriented dashboard supporting your data incident investigations. So you can actually then go ahead and remediate specific things that you care about. The solution also has a policy exchange marketplace where, as customers are defining risk widgets around risk that applies to them at various dimensions. Could be about sharing, could be about entitlements, could be about permissions, could be about location. The on a publish and subscribe model, they can actually consume what risk widgets are getting defined by other customers, where it gets represented in an anonymous fashion, where if they choose to publish, they can actually choose to subscribe as well. So where, for example, if you were a financial services security exec, you could, in an anonymous fashion, get views and insights into what other financial security professionals are doing around defining risk within their own environment. So you can actually take a lot of those widgets, like you're seeing here, could be risk widgets, could be policy widgets, could be all the active widgets. You can actually go ahead and add them to your dashboard, to where if you are concerned about where you want to start, you can use this as a springboard to define specific risk widgets on dimensions of policy that you care about, and get bootstrapped or get sort of kickstarted that way. Hopefully, that gives you a view into what Concentric semantic intelligence can do for you. Please contact us if you need more information. www.concentric.ai. Please go ahead and book a demo or contact sales@concentric.ai for more information. And we'd be happy to come in, talk to you, learn about your specific data security needs, and see if we can be of help. Thank you very much.